Simply.
Opinionated. He's simply. I'm opinionated, and this is simply opinionated. Episode 2. And I do believe you have a topic to discuss.
Yes, it's UFOlogy this week. I think I'm saying that right. Please don't butcher me if I'm getting it wrong. Mainly discussed about because I watched about a week or so ago. I don't know if you've watched Joe Rogan's podcasts that are now on Spotify. That he's had over the amount of years, he's had loads of people to do with ufology and UFO sightings and all that sort of stuff. I've been really interested in it for ages. I'm kind of more leaning towards it's a real thing now that the government came out not too long ago with. I don't know if you saw the radar footage they had where they showed you how that aircraft went from zero to the limit of the sky within seconds, and there's nothing on our planet or in our technology that exists at the minute that can create such a propel that quickly kind of thing. So they're it's proof of UFOs, and they actually released it to the public not long ago. I don't know if you saw that in the news or on Facebook or anything, but that sort of stuff has swayed me more to it. And then literally a week after this podcast came out of the guy that they had a film made about him called Fire in the Sky in 1993. Mm-hmm. It was of he got abducted. I think it was the 60s or the 70s. So around that time, I think it was. It might have been the 80s. I'm not too sure. It was around that period. He appeared to have got abducted himself, and then they made a film out of it in 1993. And that I didn't realize until recently, because obviously everyone's seen Attack on Mars and all those sort of films.
Yeah,
and they've got the generic grey image for an alien. If you told anyone what an alien looks like, they'd say, "Oh, skinny, big head, big eyes, and grey with no hair." That's what everyone uses because it's the common popular thing, isn't it? So I didn't realize until listening to this, because because Joe Rogan was asking him to describe what he saw, and because obviously he's described this thousands of times, because the guy's 80 or something now. He's well old. I think he was terminally ill. So he did this podcast. I think he's either shortly about to pass away, or he's on deathbed. He was very, very ill, I think, at the time when he did this. So he was this is why I think he's finally doing it in a more detailed form, because he doesn't really care anymore from what I got from it anyway. But the way he was describing it, he described it as the big airs, the hairless skin, big eyes, big head, and really frail bodies and grey skin. And I was like, oh, that's hilarious. This is clearly fake. He's clearly a fraud, because he's describing the typical alien getup that everyone uses to be in popular pop culture way of an alien. And then I realised, no, hang on a minute. If this was done all that time ago, and it was because he's the second most famous abduction in history. I think it was, I can't remember, there was a wife and a husband that got abducted before him. They're the most famous. I can't remember what they're called now. But he's the second most famous because they made a film out of him and books and everything else. But that was done, they didn't make the film until the 1993s. No, and his done was years before that. His actual abduction was before the popular pop culture reference of an alien. So they probably used what he saw and described as the description for aliens. So that makes sense why I thought he was making it up, because obviously at my age, I wasn't around then. So all I've seen is from films and books and games, and everything else. So I was like, oh, so that's really interesting. So that, and he was talking about what he saw, and I wanted to get your opinion on what you thought on aliens, really, and whether you believe it or you think it's a load of rubbish, or just generally where you're coming from on the topic. Because I'm more to believing it now after researching it a bit more than I am not. I believe in this sort of stuff more than I would say ghosts, for instance. But I'd like to get your point on it.
Well, the thing is, I've always been fascinated if has people will say we're not alone in the universe and greetings from outer space kind of mentalities. But I think it as you said, you hear all these stories and you hear all these accounts of people getting abducted and things that cannot be explained, and obviously sightings and Area 51 and all that uh, jibber jabber. What I personally believe is I think it would be pretty narrow minded of us if we didn't accept the fact that there could be other species that are just as intelligent as us somewhere in this great big universe we live in. I mean,
Yeah.
like they may not be as technologically advanced as they're shown in the films. They might not have spaceships. They could be just like you and me, but obviously you had three heads and one leg or whatever, and like, or they could be an advanced species that does travel across the stars and observes smaller undeveloped species, or just basically people that are just not as advanced as them. I think it's more weird how it's interpreted as they'll watch us from afar. Every now and again, they'll, pick us up from the sky, do a bit of probing and all that. Like generic, that bit of generic stuff.
Just drive-by probing. Yeah.
Yeah, drive-by probing. And just like, don't mind me, I'm just going to stick this up your ass and then we're just going to plop you back down. All right, thanks.
It's gonna take a bump sample and I'll be off then. Yeah.
It's just, I love the fact that they're so focusing on our anal fucking region. It's beautiful, but I love the fact how it's become so ingrained in pop culture and like the history
Oh,
of
it's
things like that.
massive. Yeah, it's crazy.
And it's nice that it's been shown more in terms of films and games and things like that, because I love the fact that it's exciting to know that there are other people out there that do believe in stuff. I know a lot of people are skeptical, but I'm
Yeah.
also skeptical about religion, so that's a whole different kettle of fish. But yeah, it's I personally do believe that there are other things out there that are just as smart as us, maybe more, maybe less, but they're probably just millions of miles away, light years away, more specifically. And when it comes to whole like conspiracy theories and the government hiding stuff, I mean, it would be nice to believe that that stuff is true, and some of the stuff that you do see is fake, but there is a certain realistic uh, point of view where you could accept the fact that there are things like that in the world, and I would like to believe there are other creatures like that. It's just at the end of the day, it's how people perceive it, you know? I
Yeah.
mean, we all go on that generic thing of like, oh, they're going to steal a cow for 2 weeks and bring
Again,
it
makes no
back.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah,
Drive-by
it's
milking.
weird. Yeah, it's weird, right? And like, you just want to think to yourself, if I was an alien, if I was an alien that came around Earth in my spaceship, and I'd be like, right, let's have a look at what these guys are up to. I think the last thing I would do is plop the person back on the planet being disturbed as fuck, traumatize the poor person. Wouldn't it be easier to, if you're going to experiment or test how far a human's threshold is, you would, have the ability to give them amnesia or something like that.
Yeah,
You
you
know?
put them in situations that they weren't ready for. Yeah. To
Mm.
test how you could stretch them and stuff, I suppose. Yeah. But
So,
yeah, I get what you
so,
mean.
so, like, if you saw an alien planet, so if you had the capability to have your own spaceship and you traveled to a different planet, what would in your way, how would you handle that situation? What would you do if you like, oh look, there's life on this planet? What would you do, Adam? What would you do?
I think the same thing that the government are currently trying to do with Mars. I'd see if there's like water. Can you breathe there? Is it habitable? Do you mean like all the base stuff that you need to be able to survive on a planet? you do all that. That would definitely be the first thing you do. Then you probably check whether there's anything hostile in the area, I guess. Um, you wouldn't exactly, like you said earlier, you wouldn't just go down for a day trip, probe a guy's ass, and then leave. You wouldn't just go to a local, go millions of light years away, suck up a cow to have a milkshake, and then go home. Like you just wouldn't. It just doesn't make any sense. A
Mm.
lot of these times, I think, because I personally believe that a lot of these, no, so not a lot of them, but some of them are true in a sense. Because if you look at um, the way that stuff was covered up in the past and how it's been revealed now, like with Area 51, like Area 51 wasn't actually admitted to being a place until they wanted to expand it, and then they legally had to admit that it was a place. I don't know if you knew that. Um, but,
No.
so originally, when Area 51 was smaller, they never admitted that it to the public. That everyone, said like a bit like now with generic ufology, like they don't admit anything now. Well, saying that no, because they've just admitted a load of stuff now. So probably say a few years ago, they admitted that stuff wasn't real, and they never gave anyone any details, leeway or whatever. So when they needed to expand the base, obviously they need more land, but because it's in the desert, they needed to buy more of the land to make the
Mm-hmm.
base. As you do, if you want a bigger property, you got to buy more land. Legally, they have to say why they want the land. What purpose are you buying the land for? So they had to admit that the base was a real thing because the person who owned the land had to be shown what was going on with it. Do you know what I mean? Like, why am I selling it to you? So they had publicly had to admit that Area 51 was a place, which is kind of hilarious that they had to do it. That's how everyone found out about it, is because they wanted to make the place bigger. Before that, people were like looking over rocks and trying to get photos and stuff. It's crazy. Um, but yeah, I certainly wouldn't be just dropping in and sampling. I think it's more of a if say for instance, I believe that aliens have come down and like this I forget his name now. I should have written his name down. I forget his name. The guy who's the story's based on, Fire in the Sky.
Yeah.
His whole story was he was out with 8 other people, and I'll send you the link to some of these podcasts after this because it's really interesting. And you know when you look at someone's facial expressions and the tone of the voice, and you can tell that they've just been through some stuff when they're like recalling memories of things. And I genuinely believed what he was saying, even though necessarily he could be full of shit. Do you know what I mean? But I was believing at the time what he was saying. Like either he had like concussion and he believed what he saw because he was like tripping out, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever you want to call it, right? But at the time, I believe he believed what he saw. But he said he was going out with he was a logger in America, so they were going down chopping the forest down, and he said they saw a ship come down, or was it just hovering something like that? It was in the area, and then they walked towards it, and then he got like like an electric pulse shock, be a bit like an EMP, and it stunned him and knocked him out. And then all of his, the last thing he remembers seeing and hearing is his friend saying, "Don't go near it." They saw him get electrocuted. Bearing in mind, they all signed like petitions to say, they all signed forms with court and everything saying that they witnessed what they saw, and they believe everyone had exactly the same story. They interviewed and they even did lie detector tests on them like 10 times each, something crazy. It was really, really seriously looked into because the Secret Service and everything else wanted this to be not mentioned to people because,
Of course.
as you probably would be, because back in whenever it was, like I said, I can't remember which particular year from it. It was between the 50s and the 80s. It was from some of that time period. I know that's a massive time period, but I
Mm-hmm.
don't remember the top of my head when it was. But the film wasn't released until 93, so I think he said it was like 10, 20 years after it happened or something like that. But so he got knocked out, and he remembers waking up on a metal table. Again, it sounds really hilarious because it sounds just like the films. But if his experience was before those films were made, and they just copied his abduction record to make a film out of it, which they did make a film out of it, makes sense that most things have copied what his popular film did, because it was
Yeah.
so successful. So he said he remembers waking up on a metal table, and he had like a thin hand touch him, like thin fingered hand just touch his skin. And he said he remembers lashing out because he was scared, as you would be if you're concussed and you've been
In
knocked
that
out the floor.
situation,
Yeah,
obviously.
you woke up naked on a metal table, and you're like, what the hell is that? Of course, the first thing you're going to do is just slap out and try and escape because you're scared, right? So everything he was saying, I could actually believe because it makes sense realistically that happened to yourself. You'd be like, what the hell is going on? And you would probably get aggressive because you'd be scared, like you'd be trying to defend yourself, like survival kind of techniques. He said he
Keep your
remembers.
bony fingers away from me.
Yeah, he said, and the weird thing was they weren't threatening like everybody says aliens are threatening. They're here to invade and they're going to steal your babies and all this shit. Do you know what I mean? He says they were actually really peaceful, but he said he remembers slightly tapping one of them and they went flying across the room. He said they were really light. They had like no bone density and they were like really frail. He says, so I barely touched them and they went flying and they freaked him out. So he said he remembers grabbing like wildly trying to grab glasses and stuff to try and defend himself. And he grabbed something that looked like a glass bottle, but he says he wasn't really sure because his vision was quite blurry from being electrocuted from whatever the pulse beam or whatever he said their ship caused. I don't know whether they were refueling or whatever they were doing, but he says that he knocked him straight out with like it was like getting electric fence. He said, and then he woke up on the sail. He said he grabbed the first thing and was waving it around to try and get them out of his face. And they walked out the room because they were scared because obviously there's naked dudes just flailing over the.
With a piece of like the fucking hostile glass.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
don't make me use this paper, people.
You know, because for all we know, if they are real, that was the first experience they've had with human. It very well could be because it was ages ago. So you know, both sides are probably going to be terrified. He said the next thing he remembers, it was like 5 minutes or so, and his vision started coming back a little bit, but it was still blurry. He said it's like when you haven't got the right glass prescription. He said it was so you could just about make things out. And he remembers a human-looking object coming in. And so he said he thinks that they transformed into something that looks familiar to him, so that he would like chill out and not be aggressive. He's like, oh look, there's another human. And then Joe Rogan asked him, so he said, well, what did you do then when you saw the human? He said, well, I just grabbed his hand because I saw something familiar, and he wasn't being aggressive, and he was taking me towards the exit. So he's like, well, of course I'm going to go with him because if a human's saying, here's the exit, I want to leave. Like he said, that's exactly why he decided to just leave. He was like, yeah, I've got to take me to safety kind of thing. And he says he walked off the ship and it was exactly how he described it, like a saucer, and it had a ramp, metal ramp, which is exactly how Bob Lazar, which I'll get into in a second, is someone else how he described them when he used to work at Area 51. He described them exactly like a saucer. He said they took him into this weird, like confinement warehouse place, and he said there was a load of people that looked like humans, but they didn't look like humans. It was like they tried what they thought humans looked like. He said they tried to make me look more comfortable. He said then I lay down and they forced me onto a table, put like a weird gas mask thing on me, and I woke up back in the field again. Like that's really weird. And the way he was described, obviously I described it with awful detail. If people would like to know that are listening what I'm on about, the podcast I'm on about, I probably will link Joe Rogan's podcast, that episode, down below so people can go and watch it because it's an amazing episode. Like it's like 2-3 hours long, but you can listen to the detail he goes into. And the one thing when people are lying, if you ask them over and over and over again, especially for like 50 years, because he's been doing this for like a long time, this thing, you know, he's been questioned and questioned and questioned, and his story has never changed, which is what happens with a lot of people that lie. They'll forget details, whereas if it's a traumatic experience, you're not going to forget details. If you thought you were going to die, you'd probably remember it forever, especially if you were being like biopsied on and stuff. He said because he was quite damaged because when it electrocuted him, it burnt his skin and stuff. And he said when he woke up, they were like sewing him back together with stuff. So he was freaking out. That's why he lashed out, because he was like woke up and they were like stitching him up. So he threw him off him. Which is one of the things I was like, well, that's kind of interesting, because if I thought about that personally, you would act like that. You'd freak the hell out. Like,
oh yeah, because you'd be like proper impulsive, like you'd be like irrational and just like if you saw something completely unknown to you, of course you're gonna lash out in that kind of manner, you know.
Yeah, and it's like I watched two more similar podcasts. Well, there was one from Tom DeLonge that was one of the. I think was he guitarist in Blink 182? I think he was.
Yeah.
He said he went and worked with the government and he started an entertainment project with them, and that he met them in some random airport, and they gave him like secret files and said there was an incident in Roswell. We found a life form, and Joe Rogan's looking at him like, "You're bloody crazy. This is you're talking out of your arse. But again, you look at the person, you're like, do you know what? He actually believes what he's saying. Like you can tell that he believes this stuff. Um, and then apparently he's working with loads of government, and he can't. And you, literally, if you type in Tom DeLonge UFO onto YouTube, you'll get so many like radio station interviews about it, and he's still doing it to this day. And apparently, he's working with them now. So whenever any like alien film or book or game or anything to do with UFOs comes out, it's him working with them because he has like an entertainment company where he's feeding it. So he's making us as a race more be able to cope with the idea of aliens and stuff. So we're not so freaked out when we initially figure it, but when they finally reveal everything to us. Because I don't know if you knew, but as the COVID relief this year in America, they're releasing more details on the UFOs to the public, general public in America, which obviously will end up on the internet and end up to us and everybody else.
Okay,
So
that's quite interesting.
yeah, it's like they demonstrated last year. I think it was last. No, it would have been year before. Year before. It's mad to think that COVID's been nearly like a year already. It's crazy to think that.
True.
But they released this like orb of metal, if you want to call it that, right? So they had it in a case. They displayed it. It was literally on the news. So if anyone wants to look at this up, just type in like Tom DeLonge releases strange metal life form. I don't know however you'll find it. You'll probably find it quite easily because it was literally on the main news for like half a year. They had this weird like unknown metal source that had its own gravitational field. So you know how our gravity works around the planet. It had an opposite version to that. So it pushed stuff away from it rather than sucking stuff in, and it hovered on its own, and you couldn't cut it unless you used a plasma cutter. And everyone's like, "Oh, this is rubbish. It makes no sense." And then literally a week later, someone who used to work at Area 51 called Bob Lazar, again, really famous person, type in Bob Lazar anywhere on the internet, it will come up with loads of stuff about ufology. He worked there because they hired him because he lived in the village or the town near to the site, and he was in that local newspaper at the time. Again, going back into like the 60s, because he put a rocket engine inside of a Honda. So, because he was a rocket engineer, so they were like, "Wow, this guy's really clever. Clearly, with like rocket powered technology, we'll get him to work."
Safe.
Yeah, so do you know what I mean? Some guys put a massive jet engine in his car. He can come work for our secret organisation. But so they had him come work for them, and he said the one thing they wanted him to do was work on this metal thing that Tom DeLonge released like 2 years ago, and that was like 40 years ago that he was working on that. And he said the only way you could touch it was with a plasma cutter. But plasma cutters weren't even like well known until a few years ago. Were they like as an actual technology that you could do? People just thought, "Oh, lightsaber," because obviously, again, bit of a nerd. Lightsabers are meant to be plasma-based swords. That's what a lightsaber is technically meant to be. People have made it on YouTube. There's a channel that have made an actual proper lightsaber out of plasma. And so everyone was like, "Oh, it's just a fake thing." And it's only like the last 10 years or so that we finally found out what plasma cutters and stuff are, and you can use them for like tools, and they've been manufactured to now where everyone knows what a plasma cutter is and stuff.
It's more of a manufactured product now, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas before, if you told a guy back in the 60s what a plasma cutter was, he'd just be like, "What? Star Wars? What?" Like, but he says you had to use a plasma cutter to cut this thing, and then apparently he tried to leak information about Area 51 by asking his neighbour. I don't know why you pick your neighbour. He asked his neighbour to come and sit on, like, this is before they did the expansion for Area 51. And part of the reason why they had to go public is because he leaked a load of stuff. So he got his neighbour to sit on the rock face that was just above the area because it was like an open plan base part of it. And he was taking photos with his friend and he was leaking it to people. And then they found out about it because, again, they're the Secret Service. They're going to find out about it. And then they sacked him and tried to delete all record of him ever working there, ever going to any university, ever being a person. They tried to delete all of his personal records. Like he never existed. Like his data, but like you can't even find a birth certificate for him because they deleted it. That's how like mad they went. And the only reason he was able to prove his case to like the public, again, he'd been in the newspapers and everything. This will be everywhere on the internet. Is because he had like a physical photo of him accepting his qualification at university of the university that he said he went to. But when the newspapers tried to ring them, they said no, he's never been here because Secret Service had got to them and told him to shut up and deleted the files. So it's crazy the amount of stuff they've done to hide stuff like this. I find it so interesting that people are so bothered about it, people knowing about it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I personally feel in this day and age, with all the stuff that we've got, like technology wise and everything else, people probably wouldn't care as much. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and especially to the fact now that since that was based, those incidents were based so many years, like you said, in the 50s and
Oh,
60s and
God,
whatnot.
ages ago, yeah.
Yeah, like if an alien or spaceship or whatever came interviewing, I think it would be such a revolution that we're not alone in the universe. And say if it was, like the public saw that, and we had so much evidence that the government couldn't possibly could be like, no, 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 this is just a hoax. This is blah blah blah, and we'll call out on the BS. And as you said, with the technology that we have now, if we had a different race come to our planet, I think it would be so like at first, because I know a lot of people don't like
Change.
different change in a sense, and it's just like, oh my god, they're here to invade. We're going to be so wrapped up in the fiction that we have seen over the years that we're going to assume that they're going to come to our planet to kill us all because we're parasites or inferior. But if they're going to come to our planet, see us face to face, I think I'm pretty sure if they wanted to kill us, they'd be doing it from afar with a big, massive laser beam. Yeah, so it's. I would like to believe that if, as a society, we would be like, let us know each other. Let us, share stories and create a society together. And obviously, there's going to be some people that would be like, you could argue borderline just racist to aliens, like be like, no, go back to the skies where you belong. Don't be coming to our planet with your three eyes and your
Oh, yeah, you're
four
always going to have
legs.
people like that. Yeah.
Yeah,
And the thing is, those will be the people that have said, "Oh, it's all a load of rubbish," until there's one literally in front of them.
yeah, yeah, with their own two eyes.
Yeah,
And I would like to think that there are some intelligent people out there that would like to know about another species just as intelligent as they are, because human beings sometimes do have this kind of mentality of like, we are the best. There is nothing better than us. We are the superior creatures of this world. So if another species that was just as intelligent, or actually more so, considering the fact they had the technology to, travel light years away from one place to the other,
yeah.
it'll be quite a daunting experience knowing what would they want. What would they like do in a sense of like knowing that this planet has intelligent life? How would they treat it? I would like to think that some people from other worlds that came here would be like, look, right, like this is, I know this is you have a government, and like we'll keep it hush hush for now, but let us out a little bit. We'd like to know the human race. Become, maybe even become part of the society, and explore and understand each other, and heck, maybe go to their planet or go to their othering like planets per se, and travel with them to the stars. It'll be such a cool concept, the way that the human race would then evolve even further, with the help of a species that got there first in terms of advancements. And it would be such an interesting idea, to have that, and none of this no more secret hush hush bullshit. And it would be so cool to think about it in that aspect, because there's a lot of people that just think, oh, aliens, and it's just like, but what if it did actually happen? I think I think it could work if we got rid of the stupid people.
The,
you know.
the only problem with that is because the government has spent so long warping the minds of people. For
Mm.
whatever reason, they've made it fear mongering, and I don't know why, but they have when it comes to ufology. They're like, oh, they're going to invade, they're going to steal your children, they're going to take specimens of you, you'll never be the same. They're going to put clones of themselves in your. Why would they? Why would they? Right? There's a theory going around that I believe more than I do the fact that it's a different species. There's a theory that it's actually just us, but from the future. Because, like you said, if we've got the technology we've got now, and everyone always laughs at you when you say this sort of stuff, right? But my perfect example is if I took my Android phone to 1920, I'd be a witch because of the because of the shit that this phone can do. It can open itself by me even talking to it or looking at my face. I can ring someone without and talk to another human being in like Australia in about
Hmm.
2 seconds just by looking at a screen. Like if I told someone that in like 1920, witch burn him. Like
Yeah,
if you
witchcraft.
and that's only like not even that long. That's like what 100. That's not even 100 years. Like if you imagine if they're and they astronomers found out recently that every star has like 10 million star systems inside of it. So to think like you were saying earlier to your point, how if to think we're the only planet with life forms on it that have any sort of intelligence, is really dumb to be honest. Like there's
Yeah.
going to be others that are intelligent, and who knows, they might be so far ahead of us, or and there might be some that are so far behind us because there could be. But
Hmm.
considering if you look at the way we evolved and was complete accident, really, um, who's to say that it couldn't happen elsewhere, and that they've got technology so advanced from what we've got already. I mean, we've meant to have said that in like 10 years' time, we're meant to have chips in the brains that cure us of all diseases and we can download a language and all sorts of crazy stuff. Elon Musk actually said that like last year. He says we're 10 years away for being able to telepathically talk to each other and we won't need mouths anymore. He said that on a podcast last year. Like,
That's just
he's developing,
madness.
and he said that he's developing to go to Mars, which everybody knows. He's SpaceX program in NASA. He's developing program to go to Mars. He's literally paying people are paying like £50 million for a ticket to Mars. And why is it so weird for us if we can accept the fact that Elon Musk can do all this crazy stuff and how smart he is? You know, like Tesla cars that can drive themselves, and we as a planet are already thinking of going to Mars, and we've already been to the moon. Why can't we get this concept into our head that other planets could already have done the same thing and already done it better than us? So they could even have technology that lets them travel back years, forward years, light speeds ahead, like planets ahead in seconds. I mean, we can get to from the moon to Mars. It takes a year each way for us to get there. That's what they've figured out. That's why no one's gone there yet, because it takes a year each way. As soon as they can shorten that time frame, bet you any money there'll be buildings on there. Like,
Oh yeah, definitely.
like
It's funny to think that how far we've come, and especially due to the fact that have you noticed that like back in the I think it was the 60s when they started with all those moon landings as well. Isn't it funny how everyone was just like, "Oh, we're gonna get to the moon first, haha!" Or let's beat Russia to the moon and whatever. And then like all sorts of different countries, especially America, have gone to the moon and like conquered it. Have you found it funny that they haven't done that recently
do you
for a
know
long
why?
period of time?
I actually looked into this today because I was curious. Um, Oddly enough, there's a UFC fighter called Mark Turner. He's a referee, not fighter, sorry. But he before that worked in the military for um, doing like the Blue Rocket jets and flying all their stealth bombers for like going to Iraq and stuff. And then he went
Yeah.
from there and worked for NASA for like a year. And he said he got to see all that sort of stuff. And he learned about going to the moon. And he was even going to be an astronaut at one point, but then he decided against it. He said, "But do you know the reason why we haven't gone to the moon again?" He said, "Because all the people back when we went to the moon before, obviously Russia got there first, even though they faked the footage because the recording for, I don't know, again, I don't even know this, but the recorded footage for when they landed on the Mars actually got ruined. It was untraceable because of the radiation. They couldn't bring it back. So that's why they,
Oh, really?
yeah. So
Oh.
if you go back and watch the original moon landing footage for Russia, it's fake.
Hmm.
And it's so obviously fake now. If you go and watch it, like it's hilarious. But they did get there before America, but they faked it because the footage got burnt back on the way back in on the atmosphere. It ruined the footage because again of the technology at the time. But he said the only reason we haven't been able to go back there is because all the people that had that knowledge of being able to get us out of the planet and to Mars have died, and they didn't record anything because of the year it was. So we don't have, basically, when it comes down to it, we're not smart enough to go back to the moon. And all the people that were are dead, and they didn't leave their work because guess what? They didn't have USBs and floppy disks and MSN and bloody Facebook Messenger and all that sort of stuff to send you this information that we do now. If you know something, you can tell your friend within half a second. You can send them a video, a voice clip, a picture, whatever. You know what I mean? So the information, and that's why the internet's such a mad thing, is because of the information is just so easily accessible. That's why you've got 7-year-olds that know more about maths than I do because they just download it so quickly. But so that's why we haven't gone back, to answer your question, is because we just not simply don't have the information that was left over from the people that have died who did it for us.
It's crazy to think about that. Back in the day, you had these bright, intelligent human beings that, even though with the technology being so much more less accessible to the general public, they created giant rockets to send us out of orbit to our moon. And now we're struggling, even though that we have like technology that, that can like literally keep a human going for years and years.
Yeah, our age expectancy gone up to like 160 now. It's crazy.
Yeah. It's astonishing to me that it takes a few people to make something. And like, if we didn't have people that will go the extra mile with technological advancements, we would, some of us, depending on who you speak to, would literally still be hunter-gatherers.
Oh yeah, and a lot of people would be dead as well because of like medical reasons.
Exactly.
It's like, wasn't it before where if you got like the common cold, you die from it like years and years and years ago because
Yeah.
there wasn't medicine for it. Or like TB was a massive one. So I don't know if you remember getting your TB injection at school. I think they do it again because they stopped doing it for a little bit and then they started again. But I had it.
Yeah, it was in year 8 when people got TB jabs.
Yeah,
And
it's like,
funny enough, you say that as well. Sorry. Funny enough, you say that as well. My grandmother was telling me a story about TB and saying like they had all these like massive like white tents outside hospitals because there were so many people dying or getting TB because it was a killer. But
yeah,
now you're laughing. Now you're
yeah.
laughing at that.
Yeah, it's just something you get in high school now, and that's generally how I think it's going to go with COVID. I think once all these vaccines are out, if you give it like 10 years, it's just going to be injection you have at high school, and you'll never get it.
Just looking back at it and be
Yeah,
like, oh yeah, if you was living in 2020, this
yeah.
thing
It's just
killed
going to be a point.
millions.
It's just going to be a point in history where, from December till now, it killed like 15,000 people, fifty
Mm-hmm.
thousand people rather. But I don't care now in like 2045 or whatever because it's an injection when I'm in year 7 and it's fine. But which is again just how it works, isn't it? So like, if we can advance that far with technology, the fact that people don't think about other planets could do that is kind of silly. Like,
Yeah.
um, because we can already go to space, we can already go extremely fast in jets, we can already do all this other crazy stuff like wireless. I mean, I didn't realize this. I was listening to some guy the other day, and he was saying in like the big fighter jets that they used to go and like bomb countries and do assault missions and stuff. They have full-on Wi-Fi on there. They can watch YouTube while they're doing it, which is hilarious. Like if they're not the one driving and they're sitting in the back, they have like Wi-Fi to like watch YouTube and use Instagram and stuff, which is kind of mad that like soldiers are doing that. but I suppose you're on like a 4-hour flight to wherever. I guess you've got to find something to do. But that's how like mad the technology is. The fact that they can get like Wi-Fi that high up in the sky, they can go to like 7Gs and without, and they have special gravity gear that stops them from losing blood circulation and stuff. But we have so much crazy technology, and people are like, well, that's made up. This is all rubbish. And there's no way aliens would have this sort of stuff. And it's like, well, some guy from like the 50s was telling you we had this stuff years and years ago, and then no one believed him. And now you have an iPhone that just like crazy stuff. It's like people don't seem to realize like stuff like inside of an iPhone, and consoles and all this sort of stuff that we just generally use without thinking most of the time is military technology just made into a consumer based item. Like
Yeah.
GPS, like your Google Maps was a military technology tracking device that got put into a phone so you could use it, so they could sell it to make money to make better stuff for the army. And that's how they do it, and it's mad that people don't see that a lot of the time. They just think, oh, it's just my phone, and it's like if we're able to do that, if you're able to pinpoint a location anywhere on the world and find it in like 10 seconds, do you not think someone who was say even if they're like 1,000 years, not even that, if even if they're like 100 years ahead of us, you think about how good their technology is in 100 years. You think about how good our technology would be in 100 years, like mental. I'll be surprised if in 100 years anyone's actually driving. I'm expecting everybody to just have Teslas that just drive themselves, and it's just kind of automated traffic. Like in that Doctor Who scene where there's like floating cars in traffic and they're just endlessly waiting for the traffic.
Yeah, on New Earth.
Yeah, it's. I reckon it's going to. Well, not floating, obviously, because they can't physically do that at the minute. But again, 100 years, you never know. But they, I reckon it's going to be Teslas everywhere. I mean, I don't know how you would feel about having a chip in the back of your head, but if it could cure you of any disease, you could download anything you wanted to know straight away, and it could stop like cancer and all this sort of stuff. And I'd do it. Why wouldn't you do it? Do you know what I mean? Like you could talk to someone through your head rather than have to speak to them. Like because especially with people with like anxiety and stuff, that makes it so much easier. If you could just talk to someone by thinking to them, like because they can actually get how you feel as well. Like that kind of technology we're okay with, but a little green man coming down a spaceship sucking up a cow. That's preposterous to us that someone other than humans can create a craft that can fly out of space and fly. You think about it, this like simple, right? We're denying the fact, even though we've done most of this stuff ourselves. So we've already built a rocket and gone to the moon and come back. We're
Yes.
we're saying, oh, how dare someone go from one planet to the next with a flying machine? Okay, right. We've already done that. So why are we denying that? That's silly. Um, how dare people have like touchscreen technology and face recognition technology? We already have that in your phone that you use every day. How dare people have like biopsy equipment and want to test subject things and get analyze grass samples and all this sort of stuff is what they say that they don't do when we do that already anyway, because that's what most of our scientists do. That's how we got a COVID vaccine so bloody quickly, is because we did biopsy tests on people that were sick with it. And most common flu jabs are just a dead strain of that virus, which people don't seem to realize. Like if you got your cold and flu jab, which you meant to get every year, stop you from getting sick, it's got a dead strain, at least it used to. It might have updated now, but it used to have a dead strain of the cold flu in it. So your body would get it. And that's why when people are getting the COVID injection now, they get sick. Some people, not everybody. Some people get ill from it for a few days because that you've been given the virus, but a dead version of it. So your body can automatically make the antibodies for it, because that's how medicine works. Your body just adapts to it. So why is it so crazy? The thing that other people can do it, like it's not, and we've been doing it for years. I don't get this logic of, like when we talk about like ghosts and stuff like that and religion, like you said, I'm probably bang on where you're with it as well. I think it's a load of rubbish personally, and that's probably going to be a separate podcast, and that'll be the one that gets us cancelled. But
I mean, it's true though. I mean, like, I bet you any money that the most people that would be skeptical or simply do not believe there is other life out there on other planets and stuff, I guarantee you 99% of them would be religious, the people that wouldn't believe in aliens. I guarantee you.
This is just me, right? And people don't hate me in the comments because it's just an opinion, right? Which if you're watching this, you should be kind of prepared for opinions. But
hold on to your butts.
or rather listening this, I guess. But listening to this rather. But if you can believe that millions or whatever years ago, a magical man walked on water, pissed out some wine, and decided to come back to life because for lulz, why is it so difficult for you to believe that other beings have the same technology we have pretty much? Because bearing in mind, we've got most of our technology now, according to people that have worked at Area 51 and all the rest of it, have said that they've used crafts that have come down and basically backwards engineered alien technology to make some of our stuff that we've got today. E.g., the iPhone that you're probably listening to this on has probably got some bits of technology in it that they've backwards engineered from stuff. Why is it so hard for you to believe that people have other technology that's similar to ours just because they're not of this planet? Do you know what I mean? When we've already been to other planets and we know that other planets exist, we have them on record. Like, do you know what I mean? I don't get how you can believe in something that's crazy hard to believe in, but people like us, people die for that and like are really, really serious about religion, and that's entirely up to them. But I don't. If you can be so like you like you said, you speak to people that are really, really religious, but are so against aliens, and do you know the reason I think it is because in a weird way it kind of counteracts their argument because
Yeah.
if God made everything, why has he put them over here on this other planet millions of years away and they can do their own stuff? Because does that mean that he's their God as well? When you said God made the earth and nothing else, because it's not in a book that was written by someone who was on mushrooms at the time. Like, because if you think about it, if you was in a field and you're all
Yeah.
homeless and you're all wearing sandals and nothing but rags and you're all poor, right, just go with me.
Yeah,
And
okay, okay.
you're all around, and there's wild bushes around, and you're hungry. You didn't know that
Yeah.
those were like hallucinogenic mushrooms, and you all took them because you were just hungry. And some guy goes, I can turn water into wine, I can walk on this, and I can do, and you're absolutely tripping your balls off. You're going to believe him because you're seeing dragons. Like, do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, and like that's why you got like different testaments and shit. It's like
yeah,
day 27.
I know
That
this is
bush was
like
burning. That bush was burning.
I know it's nothing to do with mythology, and we're going off topic a little bit here, but this is kind of what we do now. But the original version of the Bible was written on like some scrap of leaf or some shit, like, and then people will probably be like, actually, it's this. No, it's been written over and over and over again. It was rewritten in the Church of England like version. How can you rewrite the Bible when it's meant to be written by Jesus himself or whatever, or his followers or whatever they call it? Again, clearly, I'm not very good at religion, um, but it's been. How can you rewrite something that was meant to be like a holy book written by this particular person and follow this particular person's side? But then some guy, Roger over here on the right's gone around and written in his verse of it. He goes, it'd be really funny if I made him do this. I made him do this. And that's basically what they've done. They just added things in because they felt like it, and that's then not become an original thing. You've meddled with it then. Whereas the entire time of ufology, people have always said, someone hasn't gone, oh, they've always come from other planets. No, there's one down the road. He lives on a 17, blah, 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 blah. And he's mowing his garden the other day. And I've got this book that says that's what he was doing. So if I had a Bible of ufology like years ago, do you think people would believe in aliens because I have a book that says that that's what happens and people should believe it? Because if you think about what's got more evidence in it, right? If you think about the amount of smart, like people that are backed up by their position in what job they've got, or if they work for the government, or there's so many people that have come out on record and said and shown evidence. I'm bearing in mind we have a fair amount of evidence to support ufology now. I mean, they're meant to have ships and stuff that people said they've seen, or people have quite high up have said they've seen ships and technology. And if we've got so much evidence on that side, what really do we have physical evidence on the other argument in terms of like ghosts, and religion, which is entirely down to people's opinion? Because what you have a book that was rewritten 50 times, like that's really all they've got, and they've got a belief, which is great for them, but that's all it is. It's your personal belief. So why is someone not allowed to believe in aliens when there's more evidence on that side for me personally to believe in them than there is to believe in the other thing? Like, it just, I don't get it. And some people are so like, they take the piss out of you for it, and they're really, how can you believe that's so silly? Why is it silly? And you try to explain with them and they back out the conversation because they've got no like rapport for it. They just like, oh, well, fair enough. And then like,
I think the best part is as well when it comes to this kind of stuff is like at one time I was doing shopping in town and this guy goes, "Excuse me, my brother, do you believe in the Lord?" And I was like, no, I'm an atheist. And he had this kind of like look of not disgust, but a slight of disappointment, but immediately answered. There was no like moment of silence because this man had talk for England if he could, more so than us. And he goes, "Ah, that hurts me deep inside, brother. What makes you a non-believer?" And I was like,
Unbelievable.
and I was just like, well, there's just the fact is that I just don't believe in a God. It's simple as that. It says, but why? As he created this beautiful planet and, gave us life and as the Lord Jesus and blah, blah, blah. And I'm
Yeah.
just like, look, like, dude. And because I was getting agitated at this point. And I was just like, look, why do you believe? What's the evidence? The Bible shows us the path of
The
righteousness. And
rewritten
I
book,
was,
yeah.
yeah, and I was just like, yeah, but that's a book of writing. And what makes you believe that, like there's a thing called science as well. And I just believe that what you're saying is fictional. It's just an easier way to deal with death, religion. And he goes, that is not true, my man. This is the gospel of the Lord. And he's the creator and blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, and then this is something that what will happen when someone who's highly religious is losing a battle,
Yeah.
because he'll go, what became, because then, so what became before this? What became before this? And you'll go back in time and blah, blah, blah. And it's when you reach the Big Bang, what became before the Big Bang? And we said, well, no one knows that question. And it goes, I do, the Lord. I was like, so you're saying to me that this guy, this man was just like, you know what? This is getting pretty dark in here. I'm going to just click my fingers and all these stars and suns come out and I'm going to create one planet, cover that in life, create it in my image. And by the way, if there is a God and he's listening to this podcast, I'm sorry, but your image is a little bit flawed, mate. Vain,
It makes
vain.
it's like it's kind of hilarious to think like they're like, oh, he made the Earth and made the people on it. So what about the dinosaurs then? What about the fossils of the evidence of evolution? Like, there's
Oh no,
literally
that's a
bones.
that's a test. That's
Yeah,
a test to you challenge our faith. Oh yeah, because this guy fucking planted bones in the ground of a different species to test our faith. What
multiple different
backwards logic
species
is
as
that?
well. Yeah, like to the point where they're still finding different species bones today. Like it's
Yeah. Look, oh, the geologists are getting bored. Let's just toss in a new species just to fuck with them. Yeah, put that in your museum. Take that, humans.
not,
You know.
not to be that guy, but it's patentology for dinosaurs. But whatever. But
Okay, you know what I meant. Geologists, the rock people, and they're like it's subgenre.
which is archaeology, which is also a separate thing. But anyway,
Okay, look. The point is, this man literally just kept on going.
yeah,
Like
they don't
that.
even
That is
know, do
the
they?
that is the solution. Yeah,
Yeah, but
it's hard.
if I'd love to be one day, just go to someone in the street and be like that guy with the UFO, and just have a fake Bible of ufology, and be like, yeah, but flying saucers and that in it. What happened for the Big Bang? Oh, some green guy just came down and shot out a planet, and they'd be like, what? Like what the Bible says. So, how are you going to
Oh
prove
yeah,
me wrong?
I could just imagine you going to some random person on the street. It's like, "Excuse me, madam, do you believe in the UFO?" And then it's just like a picture. Like you get this book that you've made personally, and you've actually color drawn a
Hand
picture of a
drawn.
spaceship. Yeah, it's just like, and there's actually an arrow that says spaceship.
Spaceships in brackets are real. Smiley face.
Yeah. And at the back it says "I want to believe," written and published by Simply, and
And
it'd just be
there's
like,
this sellotape, those flying saucer sweets with this magic dust in, just sellotape to the back because of the shape of flying saucers.
yeah, and just like it said, please consume while reading the word
And guess what?
of.
It's just full of mushrooms, so you can believe
Yeah.
everything I'm saying.
This will help you believe. And I would love to see uh like a whole bunch of people that believe in UFOs with a passion, but not because of the scientific, just because they can be just as delusional. Just like so they will just believe for the sake of believing. I'd be like, oh, aliens, man, aliens are cool. They're so real and stuff.
It's this
And
flock mentality, isn't it, that people
yeah,
follow? Yeah,
sheep are like you get that in any kind of culture. Like you'll get like everywhere. Like and it's just like I would love the fact if someone was agreeing with me for because they actually believed and my ideals and subject of like facts and opinions and stuff, that'd be great. But some people are just yes men, and they're just like and I'm just like, no, add something to the conversation. Tell me the reasons why you think there might be other life forms out there. And like that, I think that's the problem with like most situations when you talk about different subjects. Is there's some people that will just believe for the sake of believing, and like I reckon though, like as you said, a lot of people are generally getting convinced, or generally just starting to go down that path of like believing that there's stuff out there because of like evidence, or the stories and stuff. I think I think it, like as you said, it has a lot to do with technology, and
Yeah,
how like one day we could be
it's
the
not.
species that goes out into the stars and discovers planets. You
Yeah,
know?
I was saying this today. Like the reason we wouldn't be as shocked is because the gap of technology isn't as far anymore as if it was before. Like,
Hmm.
if an alien come down and shown you face scanning technology and fingerprint scanning technology, you'd be like, dude, we've had this for years. Like, you wouldn't care. If he started speaking another language, you'd just pull out like Shazam or something and just see what he was playing, or you'd have like Google Translate for you. What's he saying, Google? But it's kind of mad. The main thing I think it interests me, and get your opinion on this as well, because one of the things that numerous people I've listened to have said that when they've worked for the government and have worked for everything else is that back when the Roswell incident happened and everything else, and when the Cold War stuff was going on, because I don't know if people know this, after World War II, they took a load of the German scientists and had them work in Area 51, and because um, the Germans were onto some pretty crazy stuff technology wise for the time. So they had some pretty smart guys in terms of what and hence why their planes were so much better than ours at the time because they were just miles ahead of us in terms of the tanks they were making and everything else. So they took all them scientists and had them work on our stuff for like UFOlogy and working it out. Um,
Hmm.
and it's be interesting to see if the reason so many people are so against it and have this kind of stigma of like, oh, it's a lot of it's so much rubbish and it's all fake and as if you believe in that sort of stuff is because when that Roswell incident was happening, the government, US government, I should say, they sent out to all this UFO, like AA meetings or like meetup groups for UFO people and like clubs and stuff they had going around all over America, all over everywhere. They sent
Yeah.
out agents disguised as a like would you call it a groupie, like a UFO follower? I don't know what they call themselves, but like
The believers.
yeah, like we're calling it a believer. Yeah, so they said they disguised themselves as just like a normal like a civilian, and then they went to these groups, and then they said these ridiculous stories, like someone saying the other day, "Oh, I only get abducted when I have KFC." Like someone actually said that as a story. I got abducted when I had KFC, and then I didn't get abducted again until I had KFC, and then I got abducted again. Like that's ridiculous. And those sort of stories were planted around all these different groups for years and years and years to make the general public believe that it's just all a load of rubbish because it's just some nutters making some story. Just they're all stuck on moonshine or whatever you want to call it, and that's why no one really, it's none of it's really real. Like they're just pretending to make money or whatever, and that's the big thing. But they did such a good job of doing that and hiding the actual truth. So it's only recently that they've been forced to release stuff, and more people have come forward, and it's just becoming more and more obvious that you know what they clearly deliberately lied for a reason. And I actually don't blame them in a sense because I believe that people shouldn't know everything the government knows. There's some secrets that they have that we probably aren't ready for. Do you know what I mean? Because
Yeah, there are plenty of things where we could not comprehend whatsoever.
yeah,
Even if we were quite a logical human being, the fact is that it would make sense why this stuff is confidential and hidden to a certain extent. And I think it would have to be like a universal public announcement across the entire globe to slowly ease into the transition of these things are real. What you've heard about the crop circles, the flying spaceships, little green men, as some of it is real, exaggerated but real. And like, if could you imagine? what would happen if, that day happened. How many people would react in such a way? I think some would actually be like, okay, I can assess the situation, I can believe it. Now what? And then there'll be other people like, oh my god,
Oh,
it's the end of the
you'd have
world.
riots and stuff. Yeah, this is why they haven't done it. I feel, um,
Mm,
because, and this is why, going back to Tom DeLonge, what he's been working with them with his entertainment company called To the Stars. If anyone's interested, just type in tothestars.com. Um, and he's working with the government, and it's open knowledge. Like he's on radio stations nearly like weekly, talking about it because people take the piss out of him for it, but they somewhat have to believe him because of the generals that he's got on the website. Like these are legit people that are very high up in the US government, like Secret
yeah,
Service kind of people, like 5-star generals with secret keys and all this sort of crazy stuff. Um, he said that he could offer them his entertainment company, so he's releasing it. So how you said about making it not such of a hard impact when they had to tell people. So
yeah,
so every time a UFO film comes out, or a book comes out, or a game, or a comic, or whatever to do with UFOs, he's probably going to have had something to do with it, so that he can put like a background message. So subconsciously, you're becoming used to the idea of aliens being around without actually knowing that you're becoming used to the eyes. Which they do with advertising, don't they? They do it all the time.
yeah.
It's like one of the creepiest things I find with my phone. I could be having a conversation with someone, and my phone's. I'm not even on my phone, and I go to like watch something on YouTube or turn on my Facebook, and there's an advert for that thing I was talking about because your phone has picked up what you've said, and there's advertising for you.
Dude.
How,
Yeah, I've
how
had
creepy
that
is that?
recently. I've had that recently. No word
And
of a lie.
yeah, that technology has been admitted that it's in your phones, it's in everybody's phones. If you've got an up to date smartphone within the last like 5 years, 10 years, it's got that technology in it, so it can hear conversations you have, even if you're
Yeah,
not
yeah.
on your phone, and it will advertise you or recommended what you've watched. It will then recommend you something else on a separate thing. So if you're watching something on Facebook, you see like a funny clip, it'll recommend you on YouTube because the technology just that's how they get you without actually you knowing that they've got you. Do you know what I mean? They've got you hooked on it and got you used to that way of thinking, and that's what they're doing with ufology, with film. So whenever you watch like a film about ufology, um, to do like abduction or I'm trying to think of ones off the top of my head. I mean, obviously there's like Men in Black, but they're really old. There was like I think there was actually a film called Area 51. I think I remember correctly. It's actually quite decent. Stuff like that. They'll introduce in the background subconscious little nods, whether it's like filming certain actual parts of technology that they have that they haven't released yet, or a type of species or a type of technology that they know about. And so subconsciously, you've seen it. Your brain's registered that it's seen it. So when they finally do announce it in like a 10 years time, 20 years time, 100 years time, your brain already is already comfortable with the idea of it. Do you know what I mean? Like if someone showed you a camera that could flip itself over, take pictures from any angle, record your voice, do all this sort of, open with your thumb fingerprint scan, you'd be fine because your phone does that. Basically, you can open it with your fingerprint, you can open it with your face, it can
Hmm.
turn itself on and off. You know, that's not going to be a scary thing to show you. But if you showed, like, back to my comment about the whole 1920s thing, if I showed that to someone ages ago, they'd be like, "What is it?" And they'd be going crazy. They'd think I'm Jesus. If I showed them my iPhone back then, they would have no idea what the hell it is, and they'd be like, "How is this magician doing this with a phone?"
They would worship you. They
Yeah,
would turn you into a god.
and that
I'd
shows
like,
you that this stuff with the mythology, we're only so against it and like saying it's fake because we don't understand it. Because a lot of people, typically, as humans, we fear things that we don't understand and that we don't understand how things work and we don't get it. We
we
get
feel the
stressed out.
unknown.
We go through getting stressed out, angry, or scared, and
Yeah.
then we go through doubt, and then we go, oh, this is fake. They're like the 5 things that you go through, and you just and you end on denial, and then and then everyone talks about it, and they give you a reasonable explanation. And then it becomes anger. You're just like, no, it's wrong because you don't want to admit that something's like different or new because you don't understand how it works. Therefore, it can't be right.
Yeah.
And that's such a weird way to look at the world, considering how quickly things have developed. Um, just looking in everyday objects, really, like it's kind of nuts. Like I think back when I think we talked about this briefly. Did we talk about in the last podcast? I can't remember about like MSN and Bieber and stuff, and how silly things like social media has. I mean, even social media has grown itself so much. I mean, MSN and Bieber and MySpace aren't even a thing anymore, really, that I'm aware of. And
I
they were
think
like,
MySpace now is like a music thing. Like you can record music or
it's like
something.
back when I was in college, which you're only talking about, what, 12 years ago, something like that.
Yeah.
Social media wasn't like a massive thing. It was just it was barely even a thing at that point. And now it's like you live on it and people will like get withdrawal symptoms from it. And like,
It's the norm.
it's like some people's jobs are social media. Like you talk about YouTubers and Twitch like we do and everything else. Like that's all based around social media and network and all that. And basically, your job's on the internet in a sense. So, but back when I was only just in college, which isn't that long ago. Like it was just a thing that we was around that you could message your friends on if it worked, if your internet was good enough. Like and the jump of that in 12 years, and people are saying that in like 100 years' time we couldn't have like cars that just drive themselves. I mean, we have that already, but like everybody has one, and we couldn't have an injection that just saves you from all disease, and we couldn't have download a language, and you couldn't have things flying saucers that can fly on a different type of fuel. Because I mean, the only reason we're kind of restricted at the minute, technologically wise, is because we haven't found a way of a clean power source, which is kind of where Tesla's going, isn't it? Being able to charge yourself electronically, which is
Hmm.
why they're trying to reduce everyone's carbon footprint with the stopping diesel from being bought and stuff and all that sort of stuff. So that they're already going that way of like futuristic alienized technology. It just takes time, and I think it slowly, again, if we talk about this in like another 10 years time, God knows what your phones are going to look like. Can you imagine what your phone's going to look like in like 10 years? Like,
Well, it's significant to the sorry. For more to the point where you was talking about chips in 10 years' time, we're not going to probably need phones because we're going to gather all our information subconsciously through this little chip thing. And,
yeah,
the fact is we won't even need to pick this thing out of our pocket and have a look. You could
yeah.
just literally just say a voice command or something. And then the next thing you know, your brain will just go and get all that
So,
information.
did you ever play? Was it called Detroit? I think it's called, where the robot goes into a shop and he's got like a little. It looks like a power button on a piece on a laptop or PC, where he's got it on the side of his temple, and he presses it, and he interacts with the shopkeeper. There's no shopkeeper there; it's like a virtual one. But he goes into buy paint, and he presses this button on his head, and it opens up the shop menu like a merchant in a game. And
Yeah,
he pays with his like money online, which we already do, by the way. People are going, this is crazy. We already do that with like PayPal and online banking and contactless payment. No one really physically carries cash anymore because it's just easier not to. And if one, it's cleaner for a start. Um, majority of people just have their phone and pay with stuff. I never carry my wallet anywhere. I leave it at home. I carry my phone because it has contactless payment on it, and there's like no limit to it. So why would you need a wallet? Um, he went into a shop and paid for it contactlessly, and then walked out, and then had a conversation with the merchant in his head, and then downloaded what he needed, and then it was already at home by the time he got home. That's not that far off what we already do.
yeah.
It's just the head part which freaks people out. I think the idea of that, and it's like, why wouldn't you do it? Like, it's just innovation, and it's in a way evolution in a sense. So, if someone came up to me and was like, oh, say in 10 years time and say, oh, we aliens were real, and by that point, I reckon we probably already going to know most things about it by that point. We found this alien craft, and we've taken this technology that they use to heal themselves with, um, that can spray some foam over any injury. So, say you've had like a nasty slice and you cut yourself really bad and you're about to die from it, and it's foam that they can zap you with, and it just heals your body instantly. And it's a magical foam that just pulls your skin together and heals you. of course you're going to use it, and if it was introduced to like the NHS and everything else, you probably after a while it would become normal. But initially, you're going to freak out because someone's going to spray you with something and it's just going to heal you. But again, there's stuff that does similar stuff already with like, like
And when people are just like really old fashioned and just like, no, no, I'll stick to a bandage, thank you very much. I don't need of your magic foam.
yeah, it's crazy thinking stuff like keyhole surgery. The fact they can get into surgery, do like the tiniest of incisions, and then you don't even really need stitches. And you can be out within the like 2 hours. You can be out and back home after
And the same
surgery,
day is just amazing,
which is
yeah.
mental. And like, do you not think that they've got that technology and that knowledge of, or that what that using through the access of technology have gained that knowledge? If it wasn't for gathering some of the technology from military, which was possibly gained from stuff that they found from other life forms that was progressive. Because
Yeah.
who's to say that keyhole surgery and X-ray stuff like that, and CT scans and all this stuff that we use to scan our brains, and the really in-depth stuff that would save people's lives on a daily basis. Who's to say that they didn't find this on a craft 40 years ago? And they just backward engineered it. They found like a medical bay and a ship, and they just backward engineered it to the point where they've got it into hospitals now, and it's just become a normal thing because they just changed the appearance of this stuff and reworded it. But
Yeah, so basically we were the scavengers. We didn't invent any of this ourselves. We just,
yeah,
took the technology and then mass produced it in our own manner.
exactly.
That concept wouldn't be that like odd to me if hypothetically that was the case. And like if you do look at some of the stuff as well, like in Doctor Who, for example, which is a show of great importance in my heart, there's been a lot of concepts that we've been talking about that have related to some of the stuff. Like for example, with the whole chip thing in the mind, there's an episode where people literally click their fingers, this thing opens up in the middle of their head, and it's to see the exposed brain, and you get this wave of like information flooding through, and like, and then or the fact that there's another episode where they admit to saying that they ripped all of this stuff out of this spaceship and used it for modern technology. It's so like integrated that we literally scavenge and then create it for our own benefits and needs. It's such an interesting fascination how we could be the race that only progressed because of other technology from different worlds. And it's a believable concept because obviously as well, war, for example, if we never had war, technology would not as be as advanced as it is now
Yeah,
as well.
because we've things get left in our country and we scavenge them and learn
Yeah,
from them. Yeah,
it's amazing how like a few humans who create this stuff now is just you can get it anywhere. Any dumb person can use advanced technology because it becomes part of the norm. So the fact is like if that came from outer space, what else could possibly be created from our own imagination? And the fact that like it wouldn't it be so cool if like when like if aliens do exist and came to our planet and they just look at some of the technology going, did one of our spacecraft here like 60 years ago? Because I know that machine in your hospital right
yeah.
now.
They'd probably laugh if they're that developed. If a being can go from millions of light years away to us, do you not think that they have technology that is so far ahead of ours? If we can't even get to Mars in under a year from the moon, and we're saying they've come even further than that and reached us in a fairly quick amount of time, by because if you believe in all the alien sites, of which there's been millions at this point over the years, which would mean they'd have to come here fairly regularly, right? Which would mean they'd have to be able to get here fairly quickly. So they've already mastered that travel distance. Do you not think they'd be able to do other crazy stuff? It's like, and people are like, well, I don't believe that they can do the crazy distance. It's like, well, you believe that people can leave the planet and come back, right? Because you believe that people went to the moon right? And I know that some people that don't, but there's physical evidence of it. There was video files. I mean, we've been so many times now because US goes to Russia all the time, and any time anything goes to the moon or tries to go to the Mars like it did recently, it goes from Russia's space station, and that's where everything works. The US works with Russia now, so that's why I always find it funny when they're like, "Oh, the US and Russia are always fighting against each other for the race," because they work together on it all the time. But that's what I find really funny when people. It's like you can't believe half of the truth. Like if you can see planes going up in the sky, and we've seen the stealth bombers that look like UFOs. They can literally turn themselves invisible with stealth technology to radars. They can go fully invisible with mirror technology,
Yeah.
which again is only really a very more highly upgraded version of what a magician uses when he saws someone in half. He has a double mirror, which is exactly what it does. It makes you think that that person's invisible in the middle when it's just two mirrors off light. It's just light manipulation, and that's all that the jet is doing. So what's to say that some other life form has a craft? Just say it's a jet, for instance. They have another jet themselves that they can light manipulation with mirrors, that
Mm.
fold in and out. And that's not even that far what we're already doing, have been doing for years. Like, it's so crazy to me that people just don't believe that stuff. And it's like, I'm not telling you that an alien's coming for a Stargate in the middle of London Times Square. Like, this
With
isn't,
laser beams and shit going pew pew
yeah, which is, again, we already have laser technology.
pew.
I've had a laser pen since I was like 9, and it reached across 2 hotel barrows and got someone in the forehead. Like when I was in Spain, I remember I was on holiday, and it got someone ages away. Yeah, we have that sort of. Do you know what I mean? Like you can't believe all this other stuff, and then be like, no, this isn't real. Why? Because you don't understand how it works. Therefore, it's not real. That's kind
Yeah.
of dumb, really.
If that was the case, then drop your phone then because you don't
Yeah,
know the inner workings of it. Oh, I can't believe this, even
exactly.
though I'm physically holding it.
Yeah, that's a perfect example. Actually, if you, unless you can tell me exactly how your phone works in every single way, you shouldn't be using it if you're that kind of person, because you're kind of a hypocrite. Like,
Yeah.
texting us on this podcast, oh, this is so rubbish. It's like, hang on, you're using technology to moan about it. Um,
I'm
but
just
yeah,
like, I don't believe in text messages. I still use the fucking pigeons.
it's like trying to
I got a dozen at
explain
home. Or George.
how the cloud works to someone older than me, like 20, 30 years older than me. Like, what's the cloud? Like it's kind of crazy, and you're just like, well, it's this kind of invisible space where I can save images and sound audio, and it just magically appears in other places when I tell it to, which is basically what it does when you simplify it down to layman's terms. That's basically what it is. There's a
Yeah.
cloud in the sky, like a physical cloud. No, it's just an invisible technological cloud. It makes of electricity and stuff and sends things. Like, oh, okay. Again, if you told anyone like years ago, they'd be like, "What?"
And then when you do try to explain it to someone that's much older, and like because I know a lot of people that are much older in 30 years older than you, when you try to explain this stuff to them, they give off this impression like it's too complicated or too much for them to understand. So they're like, "Oh, okay." Oh, okay. And because you can clearly tell that they're not interested as soon as you make it more than a paragraph when you try to explain.
Yeah,
And then it's just like, how hard is it? Like, because it's the same again with my grandmother. You try to explain something to her, she says, "Oh, I just don't understand it. It gets, it's too complicated for me." I was like, "You was a bartender for nearly what 20 years of your life, and you had to wake up every day, do your routine, do this and that, change barrels, serve people, and you're telling me that me explaining to you what a computer does is too much for you to handle, even though that you only want to do cross puzzles." Okay, sure, sure, all right, okay, but no, that's too complicated.
I love how
Just
this has
clicking
gone
two
from
buttons.
ufology to technology. It's just, and then moaning about old people.
Yeah. All right. So I actually have a question during this conversation.
Yeah,
If you actually met an alien, so for example, you was driving or walking home or whatever, and an actual alien came up to you, like a legit alien, um, and they spoke to you. Uh, I don't know what the current situation would be. It would be like
Is it
they
windy
they they
outside?
they would just like land and just ask you a question. What would you do? Like in your first thought, if you can imagine that scenario, what do you reckon you would do?
Not gonna lie, I'd film it. I'm not gonna lie. The first thing I would do personally is I would go live on Twitch and stream it, or Facebook, or whatever loaded quicker with the better quality. I would just go live. Yeah, I'd do it on Twitch because yeah, views. But I'd put it on Twitch. I put it. That's the first thing I do, and that says something about how we are as people, because people are so quick to like say, "Oh, this is fake. I don't believe you," all the rest of it. That I would make sure that I have physical evidence. Because if I'm
Yeah,
live and I'm currently filming it live, how am I editing it? If I'm in the middle of a road or whatever and I'm filming it live? There's nothing anyone can say to me. So that's what I do. Um, if for whatever reason they were like not cool with it, do you know what I mean? Like, please don't phone me, yo. I'd be like, okay, fine. And then I'd probably ask to go on this, like, and I throw this back at you. If they said to me, "Do you want to come on our ship and come with us?" But you might never ever be able to see anyone else again, would you do it?
see, that would again, I'd still have to take in the fact that I've seen an alien because I'm one of those people. I'll see it and I'll believe it. I mean, I have my own theories of life and stuff, but if you've got actual evidence, I think I do. I think that is the streamer in both of us. We would record it or do something with that information. Because, like, this thing is new. This like people need to know.
Yeah.
So if they legitimately ask me after calming down after
Oh,
several hours,
I'll make it even more tricky for you to answer, right? So they said to you, we will take you away to our planet, and
yeah,
you'll see technology that you've never seen before. We can even
yeah.
improve your quality of life, but you're not allowed to bring anything back, and no one's ever going to believe you. Would you do it? But and you can go for it. You can go for it as long as you want, and we'll bring you back. Would you do it?
So basically, I'm allowed to go to their home world, explore, but never tell a soul. But they will bring me back to
You
Earth
can you can
after.
tell you can tell someone, but you got to prove.
Right? Okay, I would do that.
Yeah, I would.
I,
I would
I would do that because,
probably
like,
drive you insane, but yeah.
the first fucking human being, like, to like go onto a different world and explore and not be like sexually harassed with a probe. That just sounds like a fucking
You're moaning about the butt
win-win.
stuff, and you're the one bringing it up again. He's back on the
Like,
probing. He's just can't help himself. Just want a bit of
look,
probing.
man, I just want to make perfectly sure, man. I know
Just
I've
first
seen
thing
a
you
lot
say
of
to me,
fiction
yo,
involving you
my name's
people.
Mike. When's the probing happening, mate? Because I've
So
you've got a reputation around here.
I've been waiting for years about this. All
I
right,
just want to get
fucking
probed.
back
Do
up.
it.
I just like I was gonna say, don't you fuck with my dreams, Adam. uh, but I think it would be like it would just be an experience, wouldn't it? Like you would never know a feeling like that unless it's one of those scenarios where you either take it or you don't, and
I
you
think
miss
I
out.
would probably freeze on the spot at first. Um,
Oh yeah, I think our impulsive, irrational human being side would be like, "What the fuck is that? What do I do? What do I do? What do I do?"
or
Well, obviously, you're screaming in your head while you're trying to keep a calm demeanor.
so, what would you do in scenario of that guy that they made the Fire in the Sky film about, where you was out in the woods with uh, let's say on your own walking or whatever, and then you got knocked out and you woke up on a metal bed. What would you do?
Obviously, if I got knocked out, unconscious, and woke up in a different location in general, I think I would freak out in general. And but I always like to try and assess a situation. But if I see something that is clearly not human and is coming towards me while I am secured onto a you know a
Oh, no,
you know
he wasn't secured. He was just lying on it.
oh, was he just lying on it?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I guess I'd be like asking questions whilst trying to remove myself from the situation, or even that, I would try and make myself in a position where I can defend myself, but I wouldn't go all like batshit crazy. I don't know. It's hard to like kind of like picture yourself in a situation, especially if this, like as you said, human beings don't like things they don't understand.
Yeah,
But like obviously,
yeah.
but like it would be like I think I would literally ask questions whilst trying to make myself look. I'm clearly freaking out and clearly, as you can tell, scared. If you can explain something to me, if you can understand me, and where are my clothes? So
Where are
yeah,
my clothes? Why am I naked? When's the probing happening? Please tell me. I was promised a probing. I haven't received one. You've received three, actually, sir. We ran out of detail. Well,
there was just so much to explore up
you've
there.
actually
Jesus,
stood up during it, and it's hanging out of you.
it is a bit cold in here, and now I know why. I don't know. I think I would like freak out, but like in a sense of like I would try and retain some sort of like sensible, like irrational, a sensible, rational thought, and just trying to like ask questions whilst they're trying to figure out questions about me, physically. And so I don't know. It would. I think that's how I would handle it. How about yourself?
I think I'd probably hyperventilate. I'm not going to lie. Like, if I just woke up randomly, I think anyone naturally is going to panic.
Yeah, naturally you would. Yeah.
Um, Especially if you're concussed and like this guy was saying how his vision was very blurred. I'd be panicking if I couldn't see. I think more than anything else because if you can't see what's going on, that'd be a horrible experience. Um, just from past experiences where I've had my vision going, it's been horrible. So like I think I'd probably panic a lot, which would probably end up making the situation worse. Obviously you wouldn't want it, but in the heat of the moment, you're probably just going to get so scared of what's going on, especially if they're not talking your language. Um, and like you said, you don't recognize anything, you don't know where you are, you can't see, you're concussed, you're stressed out, you're hyperventilating. Then you're getting really hot and sweaty because you're hyperventilating, and
Mon
then
spaghetti.
and then your natural instinct, because people are fucking savages, is to instantly go on the attack because that's that you're surviving. Your survival instinct kicks in. So
Yeah.
this is why I believe what the guy was saying because how he was describing it in how and in the step that he was explaining it made total sense to me. As if I think about it myself, that's exactly how I probably react. You'd want to just look for any way of you getting off where getting home. But if someone came to you and went, I can take you home, just follow me, hold my hand, I can take you home, and they looked fairly human, you'd probably follow them because you'd be panicking like crazy. Um, so
I would be asking, what is this place to the human? Because identifying as a human, I'd be like, what is this place?
yeah,
Where am I?
he said
Like,
he said he was, and apparently he said that the thing that looked like a person that didn't at the same time said it wasn't answering his questions, but he said he felt telepathically he felt that he was trying to be like calm him down. He was trying to send him calming vibes. Which again, if
yeah,
we go back to the chip thing in technology, which apparently is only like 9 or 8 years away now, we're meant to be able to send feelings and talk to each other telepathically within less than 10 years. So if these people could then, if you could send, if you're, take it, you're in an aggressive situation in the street, someone's trying to you bumped into someone and they took it the wrong way, right? And if you could physically just send them thoughts of trying to calm them down so they didn't get aggressive and start a fight, you'd probably do that. So if they were doing that to him because they could see he was losing his temper and he was panicking and scared, and they wanted to reassure him that he was safe, and they were just sending him chilled vibes and trying to calm him down. That actually makes sense thinking about it logically. If you take away the fact that it's aliens, um, it would make a lot of sense personally. Um,
mm.
but I probably would just panic. Yeah, not gonna lie.
It's strange. It's strange to think about how there are so many stories that have I'm trying to think of that one alien film that's supposed to be based on true events, and it's got that girl from Resident Evil in. Uh, I can't remember its name,
What
but
Fifth Hope?
say that again.
Do you mean Mila, the one who played who played as Alice, the main character?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Wasn't she in like the Fifth Hope or something like that? Where she was in
No,
the
not the Fifth Element. No,
Fifth
there was
Element, was
like
it? Yeah.
it wasn't the Fifth Element I was talking about. It's I can't remember its name, but it's so freaky, and I'm actually gonna look it up now. So, but like, yeah, basically, apparently, these there were these what do you call them? People were getting disappearing and being abducted, but they didn't know they were being abducted because there was like this like basically a failsafe in their head where they had like amnesia, but they kept on having dreams of this white owl. But the more that they think about this dream, the more they realize it's not a white owl, and it gets really frigging dark. It gets so dark, and then the people realize that people are getting abducted, and then they see all these like lights in the sky, and then people witnessing like alien abductions and stuff, and they try and like get through to the people that have been abducted to try and unlock. But apparently, when they try to remember the incidents, freaky shit starts happening. Like they start levitating, and they look like they're being possessed, and like they go like and they're just like and people like having mental breakdowns. And then when they're trying to push their investigation further, like one of the UFOs literally break into this room and they're trying to communicate with them and abduct all these people. And the abduction things got so bad when the person was trying to unlock her memories, she actually she broke her spine. So like, and she can never walk again. To this day, I'm still trying to find this bloody film.
I need to watch this
Uh,
film.
yeah, yeah,
Sounds good.
it's so good, dude. Honestly, I highly recommend. I think it's called Fourth something, Fourth Contact or something. But I'll read it. I'll find it in a second. But like to this day, her daughter's missing because apparently they abducted her and she's never returned. And her son is convinced, still doesn't believe it, even though that there has been like slight evidence. And he just thought that the whole town is crazy, and he's convinced that her mom, murdered uh, his sister. Like it's crazy. It's absolutely mental. So they've got like obviously they've got the real life footage versus the actual film footage as well. And it's so nuts to compare the two. And it's so good. What is that name? What's her name again? Miller what? Jehovah.
Mila something. I can't remember what her last name is now.
Yeah. I like honestly, dude, it's so good. And that's one of some of my favorite there we go. I'll find the actress and I'll see the
But
name
that's
when
so
I
like pop culture, isn't it? That like they're here to abduct us and steal our families and probe us and do all sorts of weird stuff and drop us back off as minus clones. And from these other experiences that I've listened to, that isn't
the
the
fourth
thing.
kind, that's the way it
Fourth
is. The
time.
fourth
Right, I'm
kind.
going to write that down.
Yeah.
I'm definitely watching that. I might even watch it tonight if I can. Because that sounds amazing. I might have even seen it. I'll probably watch it. Oh, I watched this years ago. But because I remember watching some sort of alien abduction film, but there was like in a barn at the end of it, and then they all just got abducted right at the end, and everyone was just taken aboard and like murdered or whatever. I don't know. I can't remember now. But there's been so many UFO films. It's like I don't know
I
if
mean,
you
like
ever
Independence Day is one of the best alien films.
yeah.
Just gonna
Have
throw
you
that
seen
out.
that Area 51, the film, where the guy he gets hold of I think he gets sprayed by like, one of the aliens that the government is capturing in like their sites, testing sites, and then his arm starts turning in, like starts turning into what the alien's arm is, and then that allows him to use the alien technology and start shooting their guns because it's like skin based. But you have to have like the same genetic code that they did to use their weapons, which I found like a really cool idea for like how the weapons were. But his arm was like all like, alien messed up and it was all like green and like scales and stuff. It's crazy. Really good film. But that was all like the aliens are coming to invade and take over and everything. But it goes back to the whole like Attack on Mars films and stuff, and they've just put such a negative view of it that like if one rocked up now, people would probably just shoot the thing. Do you know what I mean? That realistically, if someone came across an alien now, they'd probably panic and try to capture it. That's probably what would happen. They'd film it and try to capture it because they'd want the money and the fame. That's what people would be caring about. They wouldn't care about the fact that this is another life form from possibly a million years away that so could be very far advanced to us and has knowledge about stuff that we couldn't even dream about. They wouldn't care about that. They'd be all about money and fame and evidence.
Yeah.
Money, fame, and evidence. That would be it. And if they killed it in the process, they probably wouldn't care. That's the majority of people that would do what they would do. Um, like I said, personally, I'd definitely try and film it. If they were like, no, if they somehow were able to talk to me like, no, don't film, or just hand gestured us to me to not film, I'd probably just freeze and probably have goosebumps and be like, this is nuts. And then I think, I don't know what I'd do if they said to me, you can come with us, but you're not allowed to come back. Because that's a very, I'd probably ask him if I can go pick up my daughter first or my family. Do you know what I mean? Like, my family.
Obviously.
Because that's kind of crazy. But then, like, for someone who's so say all your family's died and you're a single person and you don't have any kind of ties to anybody. Would you, if they said to you, you can never come back, but you can come with us, would you do it?
Well, if I had no ties, then I have nothing to lose. It's just more to the fact if I am going to trust this creature from another world on its promise, it could be the fact that I'll lead him to, give him all these false promises and, things beyond his imagination, and then I end up eating him. But, again, that might be just due to the fact that all the stuff that we've known about aliens or how media has treated
Me just put it
like
in my head.
aliens.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of weird. I guess if I had nothing to lose, I'd go for it because, that is an opportunity that no one else has ever experienced.
Yeah.
And to be the
It's like,
first was.
even if you died, what are you going to do in life that tops that anyway? Because you've
Exactly.
been on an alien craft, like, for Christ's sake. Like, that's insane if that happened. And it's very more, to me, very much more viable than the topic of ghosts because I just don't. I just don't. Like,
When it comes to the paranormal, it is like you could argue the fact that there's a lot of different elements that could create like a paranormal scene. Like again, unlike you on that boat, I find it very hard to believe that there's if I died and I had a chance to come back to life, I wouldn't spend my time as an eternal, like like
beings,
being,
yeah.
yeah, haunting. Like, why would I be like, oh, I'm gonna just like traumatize this person for the rest of their life? I would, if I was dead and and I wanted to communicate, I would do my damnedest as a dead person, to try and communicate with the living and tell them that there is an afterlife.
Yeah.
Instead of going, ooh, spooky. Just like,
Well,
what the fuck?
there's something to do with like, oh, it's they've got unfinished business and all this stuff, but like, you're dead at the end of the day. What are you going to do? Do you know what I mean? You're not gonna care. Like, whereas I see ufology as just a technology thing. I think as technology gets better and better and better, and our knowledge of technology gets better, we're not going to care. We're going to care less and less and less about whether in terms of like whether we believe it or not. I think you're going to get more and more people as the years go on, especially the next like 10, 20, these next 30 years, I reckon are going to be massive for all that sort of ufology talk and technology because it's just going to shoot up so much. Like,
Yeah,
that I really think we're probably going to have some, how you said, like, if they drop down on like BBC and there was just an alien just talking to fucking Piers Morgan, right? Some random shit, right? On a stage. I reckon we're going to get something similar to that in the not distant in our lifetime. Even if we're like 90 or 100, I reckon it's going to be in our lifetime that something like that happens, or not necessarily that someone an alien comes down and talks to us. That's kind of cheesy and hilarious, but they release evidence that is like that solid to the point where no one can deny that is a thing. They've already released evidence like that, and people are still denying it because a lot of people don't keep up with the news or don't generally believe what the government says, which is understandable because they do lie about a lot of stuff. But if they release like proper physical evidence within the next couple of years, that'd be so nuts. Like that's going to be life changing for anybody. Like, do you know what I mean? Because then that's only going to encourage more funding into it, which then eventually could lead us to God knows where outside of the universe. Do you know what I mean? Because there might be people in the US government now in Area 51. They, for all we know, they could have an alien locked up and talking to it. For all we know, if they've got
Yeah.
chips like they say they have, like more people say they have, like important people have said that they've had spacecraft since like the 50s. Who's to say that there weren't aliens inside of dead aliens inside the spacecraft, and they've been biopsying on them and learning things from them, which again people have said that they have, which is where X Files came from. It all stemmed from the Roswell incident. That's how they made the show. Um, so it's like, well, who's to say that couldn't be a thing? And it's kind of mad to think about, and in a way it's exciting as well because the stuff, the technology we could get out of it, and the advancements could be endless if we can figure out
I
to,
would like
you know,
I, I would like to think that. Yeah, have you ever watched Paul?
yes,
I would love,
just a cheerful little guy
absolute.
that gets stoned.
Yeah, just like an alien that is chill. Look, it's Seth Rogen kills it in that film as plain as Paul. But like, I would love to have that image of an alien going. Like, it's not what you know about in films and your books and your comic books and stuff. We're legit. Like, we're chill, you know. And you humans are kind. Even though you kept me in a bunker for over 40 years. Look, man, it's cool. It's cool. Look, let's just like work together as a team. You know, let's make us known that our species exists. Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. You know
So,
what I'm
do you
saying?
know another thing as well that goes back to the whole theory of greys being thin for a reason? Because if our
Yeah.
technology gets to so advanced that we don't need to be muscular anymore, perfect example. People are going to say with me when I say this. The Wally film from Disney. I don't know if you watched Wally, right? Okay. There's a reason
Brilliant film.
because in that technology was so advanced that people became so fat that they lived in floating chairs constantly because
Watching
they
TV.
had no need to be able to walk anywhere because they could float everywhere. If we get to a
Yeah.
point where we don't need to exercise because we can have the chips in our brains that just the talking and everything else for us, so we don't need to move our facial muscles anymore. So that would mean that the bottom of your mouth eventually over time would get thinner and pointier because you wouldn't need to have so much going on with your mouth if you didn't use it. The brain would only get bigger and bigger naturally because of the knowledge that you're intaking and the strain on you eventually would over and over time you would evolve. That's just what would happen. That's what's happened. Since we were born as monkeys, we accidentally made fire and we evolved into other versions over long periods of time because but as our needs changed, so did our body change to suit the needs. So um, it's not that crazy to think of. The reason we need muscles at the minute is to lift heavy things. But if you've got a machine that lifts heavy things for you, or everything is so light to you that you don't need to lift everything because you can telepathically lift something, or you've got wireless technology that can lift stuff for you, you wouldn't need muscles. And that again makes sense what the guy was saying, why they were so easy to push over, because they were completely like pathetic and like so what weighed so little. Because
It makes sense as well how iconic the alien figure is.
yeah,
Now that you said that, it makes more sense how that's a design that makes sense. Big brain, slim bodies, because they're highly intelligent with all this technology, but they're fragile due to the fact that probably over the course of generations they've just been dependent on the inventions that they have created.
yeah.
So it does make kind of sense. And not only that, like obviously they probably got technology to have food products that are perfectly for their nutrition value. So it'd be like basically they could just have like a pill and eat it, and like that's
Pill,
everything.
yeah. I was about to say they could just have one pill a day and that'd be everything. Which again, we have food supplements. We've had them for years. Like,
Yeah.
so, and this is what's so scary to think when, as you just, I could hear you physically unraveling that in your brain. Then this is what's so scary about it is it makes sense what that guy was saying and how he was describing them. Like, it makes actual sense for how the technology is going, and if it gets better, because we're only thinking about we're saying, oh, it makes sense now, thinking of the technology that we have already, that someone could get to
Mm.
that evolutionary step. But beyond that, no wonder you wouldn't need any sort of muscle mass or uh, your face get thinner because you wouldn't use your mouth as much. Because if you can think to people, why would you need to talk? Like, you'll come across clearer thinking than you will talking anyway. Because not everyone is elegant as talking, and they struggle to talk to people. So it's actually be better for people in the long run. And why would you need hair to keep yourself warm if you've got a chip that can basically change your body temperature to fit the environment, or you've got an environment which you can encase yourself in? But you walk into a concealed airlock room and it changes the temperature around you. You wouldn't need to grow hair to keep yourself warm because we originally had hair to keep us warm in the winter. You
Sorry, I just had a thought.
know what I mean? I'm thinking about it.
Is
That's what it's
it?
for. Like,
Yeah, I mean, like, is that does that mean I'm advanced because I'm balding?
yeah,
Does that
that's
mean
what
I'm
we're going to start with.
superior?
Yes, that's the reason we're going to
Yeah.
say. Uh, it's actually good genetics, not bad ones. That's what it is.
Exactly,
Um,
exactly. I'm above everyone that
I'm
has hair and
superior, God
hair.
damn it! I'm an alien
Yes,
from the future. But
I'm a hybrid, bitches. Let's
but
go.
and everyone's like, oh, well, you can't have air controlled rooms. We already have that. I worked in a hospital where they had air controlled rooms, so we already have all of this technology already. People just don't see it all the time because not everybody works in the areas in which you're going to see it. Because if you work in Tesco, you're not going to get to see an air filled controlled room that has sections in it. I used to work in a surgery, like working fixing surgery tools for surgical hospitals, and you have to put full robes on. You change into an airlock door. You put different shoes on. Go into another airlock door, and then you go into a room that is locked by another airlock door. And you're in an entirely glass room that's like 360 glass room, and it's temperature controlled through computers because it had to be for the stuff that you were doing. If I had that, and that was when I was 18, do you know what I mean? And people are saying this stuff doesn't exist because people don't see it all the time.
Hmm.
That was 12 years ago, nearly.
Good God.
Imagine what it's like now. Like, it's crazy. Like, the most insane stuff. It's mental.
Yeah.
And it's really exciting, and I'm really looking forward to what's coming in the future. And I generally a lot more open minded on the topic of ufology. I know we went off topic quite a lot with it on this, and we talked about really.
But it all relates, though, doesn't
Yeah,
it? You know what I mean? Like it has certain connections. This is the thing. What you'll notice in these podcasts, for the people that are watching, is subgenres will be very apparent, and that's okay. That's a fine thing. But the great part is when you can relate to expanding this kind of like talk is the fact is it convinces people when you throw them evidence of exhibit A, exhibit B, exhibit C. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So like everything that we've been talking about, it just proves onto our previous or primary subject, the primal subject matter, and like it's great because that's what how the ball gets rolling. And one thing I will say indefinitely is how many people do you reckon would look back on this podcast and think, "Oh, you know what? They have a point. Maybe I'll look into it, and maybe we could create a believer during
if I
this.
can get
Maybe."
one person to research half the stuff we've been talking about, I feel like I've achieved something because I
Yeah,
could hear you physically going in your brain when you were talking about, do you know what, this actually makes sense about the fact that our bodies wouldn't need muscle mass because of technology doing everything for us. And
yeah,
I could physically like feel you thinking about it. So if someone gets that from listening to this, I feel satisfied. Um, yeah,
exactly.
that's yeah. But again, about the whole, we will go off topic from time to time because that's just kind of what happens in natural conversation, which is what this is. So sorry if we kind of went off topic a little bit, but yeah. But I don't think I've got much else to say on it. Really, I think we've covered a lot of the stuff that I do anyway. I'm definitely watching Fourth Kind, like probably this week, and I think
I was actually watching. I was actually just reading the reviews while we were talking. That's this film got a lot of shit. I'm just like, what? A lot of people didn't like it. I think it's true because of the fact the real footage is also staged, but the real footage looks like real footage, and I think that like that is the thing. Like you can tell the difference between the film footage and the film footage. You know what I mean? If that makes sense. And like, I personally liked it. I thought it was quite creepy. But I'm just looking at these reviews and saying that this is a awful film. I'm just like, screw you, dude. This is a great film. 2009, respect. You know.
Was it?
So yeah, go and watch the fourth
I
kind.
didn't realize it was that recent. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, 2009. This was released. Fourth kind was.
Alright.
But yeah, on closing statements on the whole, UFO thing and stuff. At the end of the day, look at it this way: if you think this small mud planet with 7 billion people on here are the only intelligent life forms in existence in this universe, you may want to rethink that because at the end of the day, look at it this way: they found bacteria on Mars.
They did. They found parasites on Mars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, if that red planet
They found water. They
sustains some
found
form.
evidence of water on Mars as well, which is another crazy thing.
Exactly. So the fact is, and that's the planet next door to us. So yeah, there may be not like, little green men in spaceships, but they could be hunter gatherers on a different planet that are less advanced than us, just starting to walk. Or there's massive skyline cities that go out into the atmosphere and have massive spaceships that look like the Death Star and different species of
A lot
all
of
shapes and
stages with Luke
sizes.
Skywalker and Jabba the Hutt and everything. Yeah.
Yeah. Una Chinky. Yeah, no, like
But we're just going to quickly go through the links before we leave. I'm simply on just simply on YouTube, and then on Twitch is simply underscore streams, and then simply space streams on Facebook. Mike, do you want to read yours out? So I just don't mess with your links.
Oh yeah. So yeah, mine's Mister Dot Opinion. Well, obviously this is on YouTube, so that's Mister Dot Opinion. But obviously on Twitch there's Mister Underscore Opinionated. If you want to check that out when I stream, because I stream quite regularly. I don't have a schedule, but at this moment, but it will probably be a schedule later on in life. And obviously, I have my Facebook page, Mr. Opinionated. I also have Discord and Twitter. So feel free to check me out on all them as well.
Yes, and all the links will be in the description in case you didn't hear any of that clear enough from either of us. I will pop it all down in there, but when the video goes live. Thank you for watching. This has been UFOlogy. At least we tried to, and our opinions on it. If you've got anything you want to add to that, feel free to drop it in the comments. Also, maybe drop us ideas for the next video because we're trying to do a different one every week. I don't know whether you want to do the loot box one next week. I don't know. We'll see. We were meant to do it this week, but I really wanted to talk about aliens. I don't know why. So I've watched so many podcasts on aliens this week. But thank you for watching. I've been simply. That's been.
And I've been opinionated.